All right. Problems 10 and 11 on homework 1.1b are the first two really challenging problems in terms of being able to do some critical thinking and problem solving. If you have not tried these at least a few times and tried to figure out what you should be doing, I would recommend pausing this video and doing your best to try to figure it out on your own, because this is the type of problem solving you're going to need all year long, and it's something that doesn't get developed unless you're trying it. If you use this video, I would recommend that as soon as you get a new piece of information that you're like, oh, I didn't figure that out myself, you stop the video, pause the video, and try to figure out the rest of the problem from there with that new information in mind. So you want to be able to do as much of this as you can, and even after watching the video, I would recommend going back and saying, like, could I do this on my own from the start? And if you can't, you don't know how to do your homework yet. So let's look at what's going on here. We've got the graph y equals 100 minus x squared over 400. That represents a hill. This is that hill in the problem. So here is our hill and the equation that goes with that hill. We also have a 16-meter tower, TR, standing above the hill. And we're supposed to be, in number 10, determining the equation of TQ. That's this line segment right here, the line of sight from the top of the hill to the tower, and we want to justify our answer. So our goal is to find the equation of a line. And we should know that from earlier in this homework, that the equation of a line, what we need to do to be able to find that is we need a point, which we have right here. Here's our intersection point. We've got a point already, and a slope. So we need to find the slope of TQ. Now, we've been doing a lot of estimating of slopes, and if you plugged in a point very near 80 onto this hill, because it's a tangent line, you could get an estimate of the slope of the line. That would work fine, but we can do a little bit better. We can actually find the exact slope of this line by finding the value of this point. Like, what is this exact point? We can actually figure that out. And the way we can figure it out is, as I gave you in the hint, first finding what R is, point R, and then using that to find point T. So point R, well, we know two things about it. One, point R is on this hill, which means it has to match this function. The second thing we know about point R is that the x value is 0. So if we know the x value is 0, we can use this function that it's on to find the y value. So the y value will be, this is for point R, the y value will be 100 minus 0 squared over 400, because when x is 0, this function tells us where the y value is. So 0 over 400 is 0, 100 minus 0 is 100. So R, the point R, is 0, 100. Once we know that, this point is 0, 100, we can find point T because it's 16 meters above. So point T is 0 and then 16 meters above. And so point T is 0, 116. Keep in mind what we're trying to do here. Our big goal is to find the equation of TQ. We found a second point so that we can find the slope of TQ because we need a point and a slope. So now to find the slope of TQ, we can use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Here, point T is going to be, we'll do 116 minus 84 over 0 minus, I don't know why I put a 0 there, over 0 minus 80. And so we get 32 over negative 80, which simplifies to negative 2/5. That's the slope of TQ. We have the slope. We have a point, and we can actually use either one of these points. You remember from Algebra 1 that if you have the y-intercept, that's an especially easy point to use because you can just use y equals mx plus b. So y equals negative 2/5 x plus the b is 116. That's the y-intercept of TQ. And so this is TQ because we have the slope and the y-intercept. So that's the answer to part 10. Again, if you didn't get part 10, number 10, I would pause the video and use number 10 to help you get number 11. Really try to do some problem solving and don't come back to the video until you've exhausted it. Okay, so number 11, it's asking us to find the distance between P and Q. So here's P, here's Q. We want to find that distance. And so obviously what we're going to need to do here is find the x value of P and the x value of Q, because if we have those two x values, we can subtract them and get what the y value is. So point P is on this curve, and we remember that for point P, because it's on this curve, it's on the hill, it has to match this equation. So point P is going to match y equals 100 minus x squared over 400. And what we know about P is that the y value is 0. Well, since we know the y value, we can solve for the x value. The y value is 0, so we plug that in for y, and we solve for x. I'm going to multiply by negative 400 to get rid of the negative, save us a step. And negative times a negative is a positive. We're going to get 40,000 is x squared. And we can solve by taking the square root of both sides. Be a little careful here. Remember that when you take the square root of both sides, you get positive or negative 200. And what this is saying is when x is positive or negative 200, the y value will be 0. Well, negative 200, I guess, is over here, right? And positive 200 is over here. So the positive one is the one we want. But if you don't write the positive or negative, you have not considered all the possibilities, and you're going to lose some points. So positive 200 is where P is. Q is not on this hill. It's on this line. But we also have an equation for this line. So Q is on the line y equals negative 2/5 x plus 116. And we're going to do the same thing here, which is that we know that for Q, the y value is 0. So since the y value here is 0, we can plug in 0 for y. And this line will tell us what the x value is. Again, we solve for x and multiply by the reciprocal. And we get that x is 290. And so point Q is at the point 290, 0. Point P was at 200, 0. And so the distance between them is 290 minus 200, which is 90. So 90 meters. I guess we should use units since it asks for a distance. I hope that was helpful. Again, you want to go back through, if you got help on this, you want to go back through and make sure you could do it yourself on a blank sheet of paper from the beginning.